Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news, Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman. I want to welcome you into the program, everyone out there watching us here on Tulsa CW 1219. Got a great show lined up this week, and we will get started right away. We had a chance to visit with the 19th session of the Muskogee Creek Nation National Council. Has a new speaker. His name is Mr. Lucian Tiger. We sat down with Mr. Tiger recently in the council chambers here at Mulkey over at the Mound Building to talk about a host of things. He opened up with us, and it's a fairly lengthy interview, so you're going to get lots of information, lots of content here, but he sat down with us for several minutes to talk about a host of topics that we know the citizens are concerned with, want to talk about, want to hear from their speaker of the National Council, and with that in mind, we asked those questions. So I want to thank Mr. Tiger for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy the entirety of this interview as we got it this week here in Mulkey. Lucian, you are currently in the midst of your first term as a national councilman, and really, you know, you're not one of these people that have been a councilman off and on for several years. You're relatively new to the process. Why is it that you think you were elected speaker? Is it something that your colleagues have said to you, or you think it's something that they know that when things are tough, you can make those tough decisions?
I would like to think that is one of the reasons, yes, and also with my employment background being self-employed this would be my 20th year to be self-employed. I think that might have had a lot to do with it, but it's definitely an honor to be elected speaker by my fellow representatives. And it's definitely something that is a lot of work, which I enjoy. There's a lot of things that go along with being speaker that a lot of our citizens don't realize. You do come in, you do work more hours, you do have a lot of responsibility that is added on top of being just your regular day-to-day council representative. You're over the National Council staff. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of things to learn. You learn more about your code books, because you definitely have to check those out with the legislation that comes through on a regular basis.
We talked a little bit off camera too. It's been relatively smooth after that very first week for you, right?
The first week I was very overwhelmed. It was definitely more than I'd bargained for, but after the first week it settled down tremendously. I think all the news worn off of everything, and everybody's more relaxed and understands what they expect of me, I expect of them, and I believe the transition's going really well.
A lot of the times council work is dealing with outside entities, contracting with different people to do business with the nation, things like that. Here in the last year or two, for you all as a council, there's been a lot of internal things to take care of, a lot of things within the tribe and some things like that. So we deal with internal affairs committees and fact-finding committees and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about if those are the need arises to be able to put those together, or is that something you guys do regularly, or is it case basis?
Well, the internal affairs and fact-finding, they're new every session. We split up, there's 8 on internal affairs, 8 on fact-finding. And fact-finding comes together on an as-needed basis, as well as internal affairs. And internal affairs takes care of the internal issues among the councilors themselves. And fact-finding has a much broader realm.
Specifically with those two instances, here recently, you guys had to do things that maybe were a little uncomfortable in dealing with some things of even some of your own members. Do you feel like you all learned some things from those?
Definitely, especially coming from some of the representatives that have been on council for several terms. It's something that they had not ever had to deal with, either dealing with our own, within our own, with other representatives and things like that, as well as not just internal, as well as with the nation as well. Like you mentioned, that was a difficult situation for a lot of the representatives. We'd never been through that. I've only been on council for 2 years, and I obviously never been through it, but even the more tenured representatives had never been through that as well. So it was a learning experience for all of us. So it was definitely a very interesting 2 years.
Well, you guys recently gave to us a breakdown of some financials with the council, some of the things that you've spent, some of the monies that go out of here. A very good breakdown. We're appreciative of that. But looking at that too, you look at some of where does the majority of it come from, things like that. You look at a lot of the citizens as well with special appropriations, right? Are we reining in a little bit there, or are we spending too much in special appropriations? Does it equate to being a per cap, and how do we, get by with just special cases and not everyone, not all the citizens? Those are questions and concerns among citizens. So, but I take it, and we've spoken off camera, the council is actually taking steps to sort of look at how we do special appropriations.
Yes, and with the special appropriations last year, there were a couple of large investments for the nation as a whole that were considered special appropriations that are not going to be there on an annual basis. Now, like we also restructured the $250 for extracurricular activities. That's under the youth services now. Right. So they will go to that, and it's more, used to you'd have to wait until the general session to see if it passed or did not pass, and if you're on a time squeeze there, sometimes it would take too long, and some of the youth missed out on that. So this would be more beneficial to the youth doing it this way, because I believe it can be done in as little as five working days. And then also the appropriations as a whole, yes, we are definitely looking at those, because the last session I believe we all did really well with trying to cut back on the appropriations, especially the larger appropriations. And the main ones last year, the biggest one was the flying T. That was a large appropriation, and that's definitely something that won't come through on a monthly or annual basis. Right. So yes, we are definitely looking at those and trying to save money as much as possible.
Yeah, and that leads me to my next question. You guys, as a council, really, asking either through procedure or some of the actions you've taken, or just directly asking, let's rein it in a little bit with some of the spending, especially from the branches of government, executive. We look at that, and are these just the things that you mentioned there? Is that just a part of the movement to kind of get that going and get everybody on the same page as far as where we're at financially?
Yes, and that's something where we are financially. That's what we're all waiting to see. That's why the budget hasn't been passed yet, because we still need to see, the council and the executive branch as a whole need to see exactly where we are financially. But yes, and travel was one of the big issues and focuses we had when we were doing the budget through the committees. And council, we cut our travel from $50,000 to $35,000, and the $35,000 still seems like a large dollar amount, but when you have 16 representatives traveling on that, it's not that significant of an amount. So we're all trying to work in many different areas to cut back on our spending. Recently we had
a report from us with One Fire Holding Company, talked with Mike Payne and some of a board member there, and also the Flying T guys, and again, just ready to give us any information that we'd like, and we have some upcoming from numbers, but they report to you all quarterly. I think you said a moment ago you might even want to see that kind of upped a little bit more regularly, but something you'll probably get to. But they met quarterly here recently at a Business, Finance, and Justice Committee meeting. That meeting went quite a long time into the night, I believe. We worked some extra hours there, but I think got over in like 11 o'clock or something like that. But during that meeting, call for the executive session. Now, a lot of citizens, they see executive session or something, they may think, why can't we just do it out in the open? Can you explain why there's the need really to go into those things, and why it's chiefs only, and we're hashing some things out? Yes, sir. The BF&J committee, when they met last week, Representative Huft is the chair for the BF&J, and the first executive session we went into, we had certain questions with Chief, and that discussion took probably 45 minutes. There was a lot of questions about the commissions and such as that. And then we went into, we brought in the commissioned employees that are up for confirmation and did their interviews. And that's just something that we feel needs to stay within us, the interviews. That doesn't need to be in front of the public at
point in time.
Right.
And then we also went on to the regular agenda. We did the regular agenda, then we went into executive session with GOAB, MNBE, MI, and One Fire. And the reason we did that was because those deal with the nation's financials.
Right.
And that's definitely something that we don't want out to everyone. But if you're a Creek citizen, you're more than welcome to stay in the second executive session that dealt with the nation's financials. Right. And I believe that really went well, because there were a lot of citizens here that did ask a lot of good questions. There wasn't any bantering through questions. It was just good, legitimate business questions. And I think it set their mind at ease and helped them understand the process of what went on with all four of the different entities.
Your business background, you're self-employed, start your own business, things like that, and you even cited it earlier as a reason for your strength among your peers and things like that. Being from a business background, knowing what it takes to really grow that and be successful, and not only that, sustained.
Yes, sir.
Can you give me sort of your personal feedback from what you're getting from some of these financials, and if we're on the right track, in your opinion?
I believe One Fire, the intent of One Fire is to bring nation to the money. I mean, bring money back to the nation. Meaning, yes, they've been appropriated $21.9 million, but I also think they felt a lot of pressure to produce a positive income immediately, because that's been one of the main problems in the past. There's just been nothing happened. So I think they kind of felt a little bit of pressure, so some of the investments they made might not have been particularly what council was expecting or looking for, but I believe those so far have been beneficial for them. They're bringing back a revenue to One Fire, and they informed us that they expect to return some type of monies back to the nation from their earnings at the end of 16. So I see why they are doing some of the business ventures that you're going into, is because they want to try to give a quick turnaround on some money to show a positive income, instead of them being able to say, well, it's going to take 5 years if we buy this business to get any kind of positive revenue back to the nation. So they're working towards that, but they're also doing some short-term, quick turnaround business ventures.
With One Fire, MNB, and the things we've discussed, with the putting out financials and reports like that, understanding that some stuff has to stay in-house in executive session for the sake of the business. But for those outside of the boundaries, our at-large citizens, folks that stay keyed in with our coverage and everything like that, the plan going forward for reports that can be broadcast, that are published or things like that, what are those plans?
I would like to see, you and I spoke a little bit earlier about that, and I would really like to see, with One Fire as well as MNBE, if possible for them, that they publish more through our paper as well as media. You did an interview last month, I believe, or maybe this month, with One Fire, and that stuff I think that is very good for our citizens of the nation to see actually what's going on with those fundings that we give them, because all we hear is there's never anything that comes back, where that's not always true. It just might not come back in the amounts that we think need to come back, and as quickly. I guess I want to word that. It's not coming back as quickly as we think it needs to come back, but at least we can see that it is coming back to the nation, and this money's not just given out and blown, and we don't have anything in return to show for it. So yes, I would like to see MNBE as well as One Fire, if at all possible. It's not, as long as it's not detrimental to MNBE or One Fire, publish the finances that they can publish, and that helps take a lot of the burden off of the representatives, the executive branch as well. The pressure of what are they doing.
Can you give us a little insight into your personal business and history, and sort of how you got started and what brought you here today?
Yes, I have a transport company. I started it in '96. I started transporting cars, and actually had a dump truck business for a while, because it was very lucrative back in the late '90s. Then I went back to transportation of cars, and that's the industry that I'm still in. And actually I'm in the process of selling that out to one of my longtime employees, but it's been a very good business for me. I've definitely learned a lot. It's had its ups and downs, and it makes you learn how to work with people, because it's not easy. You can't make everybody happy, kind of like being a representative. You're not ever going to make anybody happy. You just need to be honest with them and let them know, hey, they expect their cars back tomorrow, and that's just not going to happen. Yes, they're going to be upset, but at least they got the truth from you. And then I also purchased a liquor store. I didn't purchase it, I opened it new in 2009, and that was definitely an interesting venture. I went into that because, that's when everything was kind of, everything took a downfall, I guess you would say, unless you were in the oil business. And I had always heard that liquor stores are recession-proof, so I thought I would take a swing at it, and it worked out really well. Don't have any complaints on that. But when I was elected to council, I couldn't do my trucking company liquor store as well as be a representative, so I chose to sell my liquor store.
And, taking into account your background, how important is it that we preach patience to our citizens when talking about business deals?
It's extremely important that our citizens and employees understand that changes cannot be made overnight. Just like with when I opened my liquor store, I opened it from the ground up, and it takes a while for it to turn. You make it through your first year being self-employed, you've done something, because that's the hardest year is your first year. And it has not plateaued yet. I sold it to some of my friends, and it has not plateaued yet, and it would be 7, 8 years old now. So it takes a long time to get the revenue coming in that you're expecting, because it doesn't happen overnight. As much as we'd like for it to, it just doesn't happen overnight. So there are a lot of changes I would like to see, and hopefully we'll see coming in the next 2 years, but it's going to take time. Changes don't happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 3 or 4 months. It's going to take a year or two to kind of get everything going in the direction that the executive branch we have now is wanting to go in.
And let's stay right there, because in an administration change, I think a lot of people want to see the day he takes office, everything is fixed. All new people come in that everybody wants. You're always going to get somebody that doesn't like an appointment or doesn't like a decision or things like that. As from a council perspective, you said yourself, these folks that have been named the executive offices to lead up these executive offices, they're certainly open to a lot of criticism. But for you all as the council, I know that there's a vetting process you're going through with a fine-tooth comb. Can you talk about what you all are looking for and really give us a little insight into that process for you?
Looking for as in
when they come forward for confirmation, things like that.
We basically just have an organizational chart and a job description, and we'll ask questions off the job description, and look into their background and their personal feelings on certain things, and also just the job performance in the past, things they have or have not done, and basically you just want to make sure they're qualified through the job description for the position that they're being confirmed for, for confirmation.
I know it doesn't say, it's not required that any of them are Creek citizens. Is that something that's important to you all? Do we need somebody qualified first, and if they're a Creek citizen, hey, 2 thumbs up, everything's great?
Creek citizen, in my opinion, is always going to be preferred. That's what you prefer to do, as long as they're qualified.
Right.
But just like you said, you want when you are done with the job evaluations and you have interviewed, you want to make sure you're getting the best, most qualified individual for the job. If they are a Creek, absolutely they should come first and foremost. But if they aren't and there's someone that's more qualified, I believe they should have an opportunity as well, because we want someone in these positions that can continue the forward progression of our nation and make it better for everyone.
And our thanks again to Mr. Tiger for the time for the interview. One of the things we've been talking about here at Creek Nation and Native News Today for several weeks is the condition of our beloved Council House in downtown Altmauge, a staple of our tribe, something that we revere, a place where some of the earliest councils of this tribe here in this area met to discuss tribal business. That council house is deteriorating. We had Kevin Gover from the National Museum of the American Indian in town last week. We wanted to sit with him, talk about his visit to our Muskogee Creek Nation Council House.
Well, first, we want to note that the Creek Nation Council House is an incredibly important historical site and historical building. It's very much it's deep in the history of this part of the country, this part of the state, and of course the Creek Nation itself has a very even deeper history in this part of the state and in other parts of the United States. So, in a sense, the history of the Creek Nation is a key component of the history of the United States. This building is a key component of the history of the Creek Nation, and therefore this is a place that must be preserved. Well, yeah, I mean, the building is in distress, obviously. The good news is it's not too late. The building can still be rescued, but that help's going to have to come pretty soon. The idea that Creek Nation is pursuing of restoring it to its original look and feel is a great idea. That's the real value of these things. We're not terribly interested in all the changes that were made to it over a long period of time. But what's interesting and fascinating about it is what did it look like then, and how to achieve that look. Obviously, the structural challenges are very real. You can see some of the physical decay that's taking place. But as I said, it's definitely not too late. And I know there are a lot of people in our country who would take an interest in trying to rescue this building. There are a lot of, I've never worked on a project like this, so I couldn't speak from experience. I am, however, a trustee of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. And that's one of a number of organizations that work on projects like this. And they are very expert in bringing together different resources, laws, combining national support and community support to sort of put together a project that preserves important historical sites like this one. So there are other such organizations out there, and so yes, there are resources and there is expertise available to do this kind of restoration. We've been engaged with the Creek Nation for some years now in a very prosperous relationship for the Creek Nation and for the National Museum of the American Indian. One of the realities of the NMAI is that we have a collection of 850,000 items. Almost none of them are going to be seen in our lifetimes. And even fewer are going to be seen by folks who don't live in Washington or New York. And so one of the ways that we address that, one of the solutions we have to that problem is to have those objects be seen in their communities of origin. And so, for example, if the Creek Nation were to ask us, could we have a look at your collections, maybe bring some of your things out here to show in our cultural center or our museum, the answer is going to be yes. And so, yeah, I could readily foresee a great relationship between the museum and this facility. And, you know, I would never second guess the judgment of the elected officials on issues like this. What I would say is that, you know, we're not just rescuing a building, we're not just rescuing things, we're rescuing something very precious, which is the history of the Creek Nation, the past of the Creek Nation, and in a very specific way, the right to tell the story of the Creek Nation in the way that it should be told. I don't know how you put a price tag on that, and so it's in that sense, preserving this past, rescuing this past, keeping this past, owning this past is as precious as what we need to do for our people in the present. And this is why I never ran for elective office, because questions like that are so difficult. So I'm just a bureaucrat now. I think that, you know, especially for Native people, the idea of a museum is pretty loaded. There's a lot that goes with that, a lot of very unpleasant memories about the relationship between the tribes and different museums and the way they chose to present and analyze and in any respect degrade Native American people and their histories and cultures. So, so that word museum is sort of loaded. And I think if you add the word museum to a building like this one, that's going to create certain expectations and certain connotations that probably in some way actually diminish the council house as simply being the council house, being a historic site, being the capital of the Creek Nation. And so having a living council house that's in use, that both reflects the past of the Creek Nation, but also is a very lively part of its present. I think that's a great way to go. Tribes across the country are engaged in not just a cultural revitalization and cultural preservation, but also in really claiming their history in a way that they haven't been able to do in the past. And having the resources to examine these places, the resources to research, to really reclaim that history is tremendously important. And so to see what the Creek Nation's doing here at the Council House is certainly instructive to me, it's inspiring to me, and I'm very glad to see it happening.
The immediate action that we had to take was roping off the northwest corner there. We do know that that's going to fall at any time, and that has to be a no-man's zone. Again, we want this building to be a place of life and gathering, whether it be from a Moby Rising event, which is OSUIT, Main Street, Creek Nation, and community around here, to a fiddle dance, which is more Muskogee specific and for our elders, really. We want this place to remain open and be what it is, and a place of gathering. But we're going to have to, kind of scale that off the more and more that the building does deteriorate. And unfortunately, it is coming down here. I'm pretty much down here once every day, if not every other day, just kind of walking the grounds here to look again, yes, at more cracks, what other debris I can pick up to as well, and just kind of visit and see how things are and the progress. So I really come down here because it is, again, for me, like an elderly mother down here that you have to go check on. She has osteoporosis, and we need to go and make sure that she's standing up regularly, and if there's anything else that's deteriorating, we can go ahead and check and do that update there. So it's really on a kind of a weekly assessment, if you will. Just looking forward to the bright future again of what this history can represent, not only for Muskogee Creek Nation and our tribal government, but also for the city. It's something that people need to recognize and remember, that without this building and this area here, the city doesn't really exist, nor does anything that we have as a tribal nation, the fourth largest nation in the country, really comes to this building here. So it's something special.
Well, that'll wrap it up for another episode of Native News Today. We hope you enjoyed the interview with the new Speaker of the National Council, Mr. Lucian Tiger. Also, Mr. Gover from the National Museum of the American Indian coming down. I want to thank him. Justin Giles, the great people there for the interview as well on the what's going on with our council house and its current condition. Everybody out there, keep up with us on our online channel. Keep watching those weekly updates. We love our fans. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great one.